Okay, well, we have just hit 200 participants. This is so exciting, and I see you guys are from literally all over the country. We are so excited to have you all join us today. Thank you so much. My name is Lauren LaPuma. I work for the U.S. Antarctic program, and I am coming to you from Denver, Colorado today. Thanks so much for joining us. As you can see, this is our live chat with marine biologists in Antarctica. So just to give you a little context, the researchers we're talking with today are coming to you from McMurdo Station, Antarctica. So that is where McMurdo is located on the White Continent. It is very far, and we are so excited to have them with us today. So this is just to give you a little reference point of where our researchers are today. And now I will turn it over to Terry Adillian from the National Science Foundation, and Terry will introduce Amy Moran and our other marine biologists today.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this live event in Antarctica. My name is Terry Adillian. I work in the Office of Polar Programs at the National Science Foundation. So the National Science Foundation manages the U.S. Antarctic program. So just a few notes to add on to what Lauren said. We would love to learn more about you all. We're really excited that you're sharing with us where you're located. So if you haven't done that yet, please drop it in the chat. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We'd also love to know how many of you are there. So is it just you? Is it a few of you? Are you an entire classroom or classrooms? So when you have a moment, please drop that in the chat. So it is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Amy Moran. Dr. Moran is a marine biologist and a professor from the University of Hawaii. And she is live from the aquarium inside the Prairie Laboratory at McMurdo Station in Antarctica. So Amy is joined by graduate students Erin Toe and Graham Lobert. And this is Dr. Moran's 7th research trip to Antarctica and Erin and Graham's 2nd. And Dr. Moran has been doing diving research in Antarctica for 16 years, for quite a while. So she and her team, they study creatures that live in the coldest waters on Earth and how they're being affected by climate change. So Dr. Moran, I turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome everyone. We are super excited to be talking to you guys today. I just wanted to let you know a few things. One, we can't hear super well in here because we're in an active aquarium room. So we may be struggling to hear what our hosts say to us. We're going to be carrying a laptop around to show you things with the camera, so it might be a little jerky sometimes. And also, we are not monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, we may be able to look at them later, but we're going to be doing too much to pay attention to the chat. But welcome, everyone, and we are really excited that you're here. What we're going to do is start with just a little introductory PowerPoint to tell you a little bit about where we are and what we're doing and show you some pictures. Then, hold on, sorry. And then we're going to give you a tour of the aquarium. We're going to show you the animals that we're working on, and then we're going to show you some of the things that we do while we're here and the stuff that we work with. So, first of all, greetings from Antarctica. This is where we are right now. We're at McMurdo Station, Antarctica, which is that little town that's sort of in the middle of the picture right there. And to give you a little bit of context, this is us. We are 3 scientists from the University of Hawaii. So we're a long way from home right now. Right now here it is 7:08 in the morning on Saturday. So we are, for most of you, we are in the future coming from here. We're spending about 4 months on the ice in the Antarctic, which is what it's called down here right now. So we're here for a pretty long time. We do that because the things that we're studying take a long time to happen. So where we are, Antarctica is on the bottom of the globe for most people. And we're going to do a quick fly-in just to show you what it looks like. It is the coldest continent on Earth. It is covered with ice on land almost everywhere, almost all the time. We're marine biologists, so we study the ocean around the Antarctic, and that is also covered by ice almost all the time. So it's the coldest water on Earth. The animals that live there have lived in that environment for millions of years, and we study how they do that, because it's really hard to live at really cold temperatures. And then we study what may happen to them when the oceans start to warm up. So how do we get here? This is a really big logistic exercise, which we do with the United States Antarctic program, which helps us get here. We fly from Hawaii to New Zealand, and then from New Zealand to McMurdo Station on a military airplane usually. And here is one of our first arrivals on the ice. So guys, what did it feel like to get off the plane, Graham?
Well, that cold air hits you like a wall. I mean, it's colder than any air that I've ever experienced. So when you hop off that plane, it is really nice to have that big coat on because it's colder than I've ever been in my whole life. So, but it's a beautiful experience to see as soon as you step off right onto the ice.
Right, so this is where we are. We're at McMurdo Station, Antarctica, which is run by the United States Antarctic Program. And this is a shot that Graham took from a helicopter of the station. And you can see it looks like sort of like a town. And just like a town, there's all kinds of stuff that has to happen here. So Graham, you want to tell us what kinds of people we have here? There's about 250 to 1,000 people here at any time.
So we've got a list of jobs that are up here, but there's anything you can think of that would need to support a town. So there's the cooks, plumbers, firefighters, there's all sorts of things down here. Majority of the people are support staff here to keep the station running. And then there's a few scientists. The only thing there really isn't here is there isn't really teachers and there isn't really kids. So the minimum age to come down here is 18. And then after that, you just have to physically qualify. So there's a whole diversity or a diverse amount of people down here doing a diverse amount of jobs so that we can do our science, which is truly an honor for us.
No kids and no pets either.
Yeah, no pets.
No dogs, no cats.
Yeah.
Anything like that. So while we're here, we live in dorms. Aaron, what are the dorms like for you?
Yeah, so when you think about living in Antarctica, you might picture people kind of in a tent on the ice shivering with cold. But the dorms here are actually pretty nice. So we have like double rooms. I share a room with Graham. It's nice and heated. We have bathrooms. We have nice running hot water. It's not as harsh a continent as you might be thinking. Yeah, it's pretty comfortable.
Pretty comfortable. And then they feed us really well here.
Yeah.
This is a big station with a lot of people. Not everyone in the Antarctic gets to live like this, but we have a dining hall. This might look a lot like your dining hall at school. Graham, you want to talk a little bit about the food?
Yeah, and I guess this is something Aaron and I, well, all of us look forward to every day. Is the food is very, very good. There's a lot of things to offer. They have a hotline with like what you would get in your school, where you get to pick what you want. Right in front of you here, there's a waffle maker. There's 24-hour pizza, cereal. They keep us fed very well so that we can stay nice and warm down here when we go out and do work.
Yeah, it's all you can eat. Yes. And someone else does the dishes, for which we are really, really grateful.
Great one. Pizza anytime you want. So where we work, so the main point of the station, I guess, is logistics and science. And so one of the biggest buildings here at McMurdo is what's called the Prairie Science Lab. And this is a building that supports all kinds of science. Where we are right now is in the aquarium room, and we'll give you a tour of that a little bit later on. That's where scientists who work with marine animals, largely we work down here in the aquarium room. And it looks like this. This is just a picture of it. You can see some of it behind us, and we will give you a tour in just a minute. So, marine biologists, when you think about animals in the Antarctic, this is probably what most people think about right away. So you think about penguins, and we see penguins. We love penguins. They're not what we work on. You might also think about these kinds of animals, seals. In fact, penguins and seals are some of the only warm-blooded animals that live this far south in the Antarctic. There's a few flying birds as well, but really there's very few warm-blooded animals that can make it here this far south in the Antarctic. You might also think about polar bears, but I just always have to say there are no polar bears here. That's in the Arctic, near the North Pole. Here we don't have any polar bears.
Luckily.
Luckily,
Luckily.
just penguins. What we study are the animals that live under the ice. So in this video, the blue stuff up on the top is the sea ice, which is over us. It's about 8 or 9 feet thick most years where we dive. And then the animals underneath, Aaron, do you want to describe some of them?
So we study all the animals living on the bottom of the sea. There are things like sea urchins, sea stars, anemones, with massive sponges, with big nematine worms, and a whole bunch of really cool stuff that grow bigger than things that you might be used to seeing at home or at the ocean near to you.
So there are a lot of animals that would look familiar to you, and we'll see some of them in a minute. And then there are some animals here that you don't see anywhere else on Earth. That makes it really amazing to study them here, but also they live in the coldest water on Earth, which means everything that they do very, very slowly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we've been studying and working here for a long time. So we've worked on several different things, but one of the big things that we've worked on is a phenomenon called polar gigantism. What that is that you get animals that are small in most parts of the world. So this is, you might call this a roly-poly or a sow bug or a pillabug. There are a lot of different names for them. This is a terrestrial member of a particular group from most parts of the world, are really small. In the Antarctic, their marine relatives are really, really big. So this is one of our favorite animals, and we will introduce you to this actual animal in just a minute. But this is a giant Antarctic roly-poly. Yeah, isopod. Polar gigantism is seen in a lot of different groups of organisms. That's just a list of groups that it's found in. But to show you some pictures, we have sponges here, which are one of the simplest forms of life, but they get to enormous sizes here. They're jellyfish. So this is a really, really big species of jellyfish that we see here sometimes, and they're just amazing to see them. And our favorite animals down here, at least my favorite.
I mean, it's my favorite as well.
You guys, yeah. Our favorite animals are the sea spiders. These are not land spiders. They're not the same as land spiders, but they're in the same larger group. So they're related to land spiders. And in most parts of the ocean, they're really, really small. But in the Antarctic and in the deep sea, they reach these very, very large sizes. So we've studied these for a long time to try to understand why they get so big here. And the answer, most of the answer is that it's so cold here that the animals have very, very slow metabolisms, which means they use oxygen very, very slowly. And one of the biggest jobs for any animal is to get oxygen out of the environment into its body. And that's hard, but the slower your metabolism is, the easier that is. And so they can reach these really large sizes without running out of oxygen. So it's really exciting. We've been working on it for a long time, and there's a lot more to do. The other thing, this is what this team is working on this year, is we're looking at development of marine invertebrates. So this is one of the groups we're looking at is nudibranchs. Nudibranchs are shell-less marine snails. And this particular nudibranch here is laying an egg mass, which is that spirally white thing. And in that egg mass are embryos. And like all other animals, marine invertebrates have to go through a single cell stage, and then they go through cleavages as an embryo, then they develop through a larval stage, and then they hatch out as little babies. This takes a really, really long time in the Antarctic. We're studying how they do it, and also what the effects of small changes in temperature are likely to be on their development. Then our other group are sea spiders. Graham, do you want to talk just a little bit about what's going on in this picture?
So as you can see, it might like the name implies, it does look like a spider. Some have 8 legs, some have 10 legs, some have 12 legs. And you can see it's looking right at you. So this is the front end of it. That tube looking down is what it feeds with. That's called the proboscis. And if you look towards the top of that tube, there's 2 little eyes staring back at you. There's 2 going forward and 2 going back. And then you can see underneath this, there are some masses underneath them. And those are the egg masses that we study. So this is a dad carrying its egg mass. Egg masses, I should say.
And the sea spiders, they do it interestingly. The fathers take care of the babies for years, it turns out, as we have discovered. And this is a weird little video. This is the upside down of a sea spider, and you can see the little babies hanging on to dad and crawling around. We think they're cute, and they are just about ready to fall off and start living their own lives. So some of the questions, we're just really briefly going to say some of the questions, some of the things we're actually measuring this year. So Aaron, you want to talk about that?
So since these little baby animals are so used to the cold, when we warm them up, we want to see what's going to happen to them. We want to see when we warm them up, are they going to grow a lot faster? Are they going to miss key timings like pulses of food? Are they going to use a lot more energy to grow at higher temperatures? And how well are they going to survive? Are they also going to end up being smaller adults, which is going to be bad for their survival? Whole bunch of questions, a lot of ways that temperature can affect these little babies.
All right, so we are, thanks Aaron, we are a diving group, which means we scuba dive to collect our animals. And we want to show you just a little bit about how that works. So this is a scuba diver in the Antarctic right here. And the way that we do this, we could only do this if we had a lot of support from the United States Antarctic program, because the ice is 8 or 9 feet thick. and you can't get through 8 or 9 foot thick ice very easily. So I'm going to show you a video that sort of demonstrates how this is done.
Up here.
What?
Oh, I was just saying.
Oh, you're showing how high that is. Great. So there's a drill, a really, really big drill. How big is it?
4 foot.
4 feet across about. And the drill, they take it out there for us, and in about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, this massive drill drills a big hole through all that ice. When it breaks through the bottom, you can see the water rushing up. That's what's going on right there. And then they have these fish huts that they just drag over the hole. There's a hole in the bottom of the fish hut. And then we can just suit up on the side of the hole and jump in. So this would be really, really difficult without the support here. You jump into the water is 28 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 1.8 degrees centigrade. So it's the freezing temperature of seawater. You come through the ice ceiling and it is just a beautiful, beautiful world down there. So here we are diving, looking for nudibranchs and doing experiments under the water. We can dive for how long, would you say, Aaron?
Oh, I'd say like about 30 to 40 minutes.
30 to 40, yeah. And then you're too cold.
Really cold.
Really, really cold after that.
Hold it up.
I see there's a lot of questions coming and we'll try to answer them at the end. So that is all we have for the slideshow presentation for you. So thank you guys very much for listening. What we're going to do now is show you some animals, and Aaron and Graham are going to talk about the animals. We're going to show you our diving equipment, and then we're going to go for a little trip outside. All right?
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys. And
All right. Stay right here. Graham, grab the camera. We'll go to our touch tank over here, and I'll show you some of the animals that bring around. I can stand over here. Okay. Hey everyone, here's the touch tank that we have in the aquarium. Some of y'all have been to an aquarium on the mainland, may have seen a touch tank, or may have been to an aquarium with a touch tank where you can touch and feel the animals, and we have one of those right here in Antarctica, although you don't want to put your fingers in here for too long because it's really cold. I'm going to start with some of the animals that you do see at home, things like the anemones. We do have anemones. We have really pretty sea stars. They are not too big, although there are some that like could not fit in this tank. We have also sea urchins in the corner over here. Let me pull one up for y'all. Just a little sea urchin, nothing particularly spectacular. So these are things that you might see at home. Then you have animals like what Amy shared just now, the sea flea, as we call it, giant Antarctic isopod. And this one's a little skittish. There it is. It's one of our favorite animals. It looks a little mean, looks a little nasty, and you can see it has these really big, awesome pinchers right at the front. This is one of the animals that will bite you if you give it the chance. I always say if you let it, you kind of deserve it. So very nice animal, love it very much. I'm just gonna put it right back so it can breathe. Some of the other cool things we find are things like this sea lemon over here. You may be wondering, hey, why did someone throw like a tennis ball in here? It is a shell. It is a snail with an internal shell. And when we dive, we see these a lot. They're bright green and they can be seen from a distance. Very pretty animal. And there's a close relative of the sea lemon as well, which I call the sea pineapple, which is basically the same thing, but it's got a different pattern on it. Again, shellless snail. We also have a very large nudibranch over here. It's called a dor. It's a kind of a dorid. Some of these nudibranchs do get pretty big. This one doesn't have its rhinophores and its cilia out. So I'm just gonna leave it back here. All right, I'm gonna take the camera and I'll show you all one other animal that we just picked up yesterday. It's a very pretty thing. We have our own tank for it. It's a little bit of a thing to get around. All right, so yesterday while we were out diving, we stumbled across a very pretty nudibranch over here. Some of the very beautiful animals that you can see. Yeah, look at that. It's got its little rhinophore sticking out.
how big is that?
I would say this is maybe 10 centimeters. That's my finger right there. So it's quite a big nudibranch, as it were. All right. So now we're gonna go over to Graham, and Graham's gonna be showing y'all some of the animals that we work with.
Perfect. So if you could just pan real quick, we'll show the whole aquarium room. And so what you're looking at is a bunch of tanks with water flowing in right from the sound. So we get fresh water for these organisms. So when you see these organisms in the tank, they're getting water that is similar to what they would have out in the wild. But if we pan over to this tank real quick, we'll show some of our experimental organisms. These are a bunch of, there's 2 different species of nudibranch in here. And we leave them in here so that we can observe them. And then it's a little bit easier so they don't have to go back down and dive for them. And then they lay egg nests in here. But there's a variety of different nudibranchs. I'll pick one up just to see its size comparison with my hands. So they're not as big as that real big one that Aaron had in the tank, but these are 2 of our main study organisms right here. But I'll put these ones back in so that they can breathe. But the most exciting, our favorite organism is the sea spider. And I got to dry my hands off here a little bit. But this is a tank with a variety of different kinds of sea spiders. So we've got some small ones, like right here. I'll just pull it out so you can see in comparison to my hands. We've got some small ones right here. And again, like Amy already mentioned, these are monsters compared to what you would find anywhere else in the world. That might be the size of a pea, or the only other time you'd see ones this big is in the deep sea. And then we've got a little bit bigger one here. And this is the same one that we showed in that picture previously. So you can see they're getting progressively bigger. And then we've got the fan favorite. This one's name is Mai Tai, bright orange. And this is the size of my hands. You could put this out on a dinner plate. It's about, you could drape it over your head. It's a very big sea spider. So you can see here, nice and big. But this is one of the fan favorites. This is one that a lot of people come down to see because you will never see a sea spider this big if you're just out in the tropics looking for sea spiders. So it's a very, very large. So as you can see, we've got a variety of different sea spiders in here. We've got a variety of different organisms throughout all these tanks here. And we study as many of the organisms that we can. And then now we're going to go to Aaron. Aaron's going to show you some of the equipment that he uses and Amy uses to stay warm when they go down and dive. So I will take the camera here.
Thank you.
And we will show that.
All right, let's go over here. I'm just going to duck under this wire. So we do go diving to collect all these animals. Some of them are really fragile, so you don't want to be dredging them. You want to collect them gently by hand. And to do that, if the water is cold, the water is -2 degrees Celsius or 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it touches your skin as it was just now, it kind of burns a little bit. It is not very pleasant. And so to keep me nice and warm underwater, I have my dry suit. Some of y'all who dive may have worn a wetsuit before. Maybe some of y'all have worn a dry suit. A wetsuit lets water in, touches your skin. If that happens, then we're in trouble because it's so cold. This dry suit keeps me completely dry on the inside, completely. And so if you can think of using this like kind of having a balloon of air around you, you put a little air inside, it keeps that nice warm air. Inside, you have this zipper that lets us blow in and that prevents water from coming in. And the important part are these rubber seals over here. So these rubber seals form an airtight seal around my wrist, and I also have some that form an airtight seal around my neck. And so it doesn't let any air come out except from this valve over here. Once I have those seals on, I have this awesome pair of gloves that I can fit right on for another layer of protection. And then we gotta get our tank on. We're pretty much ready to dive. Inside the dry suit, I also have my really comfortable undergarment, which is kind of like a sleeping bag, arms and legs. It fills up the dry suit, keeps the air in there. And I really, really like it. So we are well equipped for diving here. It's still cold. It still hurts every dive, the hands and the feet. There's no way around it. But it's worth it for the amazing animals that we get to collect. All right, the next thing we're going to show you, diving underwater is pretty cold, but it's pretty cold on land too. So we're going to hand it over to Graham, who's going to show you some of the extreme cold weather gear that we are issued here and how that keeps us warm.
So, as many of you who've grown up in snowy areas know, or go in the snow, we have snow pants here. These keep us not only keep the snow off from us, but keep the wind off from us. Sorry about that. They keep, nice snow pants to keep us warm. And then we have this nice big coat here. This coat is famously called Big Red, as you can see. It's a nice puffy down coat. It's got a nice fur liner. So when it gets really cold, you can tuck it right in to keep you nice and warm. So these coats are amazing at keeping us warm. And then we also wear, as many of you probably have seen, the big white bunny boots. Now, I know these might look a little goofy, but these are amazing at keeping you warm and keeping you dry because they're waterproof. So they have these little belts here to help keep the warm air in. But these boots are amazing when we're walking around on the ice, just keeping us warm. Because if you're wearing regular tennis shoes or boots, that cold is going to seep right up through that. And then lastly, we also wear big gloves, and then we also wear ski goggles when it gets really cold outside to protect our eyes from the snow.
So right now, everybody, right now, it's about 28 degrees outside because it's in the middle of the summer in the Antarctic right now. So it's about as warm. It's a little bit warmer, but it's pretty warm right now. So we're not, Graham's all geared up to go outside. Aaron and I are just going to walk outside really quick. What we're going to do is show you what it looks like outside of the Prairie Aquarium Lab. We'll be able to see the sea ice, some mountains, and a little bit of the station. Let's go. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so one thing you can notice here is we're about to go outside this door. This door doesn't look like a normal door that you would have at home. This looks like a freezer door because it is. So the main reason for this is to keep the cold out and the warm in. So we push this button to release the magnet, and then we open it on up and let the light adjust for a second, and then we'll go on out.
All right, following Aaron out here. And here we are in the great outdoors.
Got real quiet.
So hopefully you guys can see us and hear us okay. It's much quieter out here, so I hope we're not yelling. So what you can see here is part of the station that Aaron's showing you right now. And that is, there's a couple of buildings. The one with the square windows is an upper part of the Prairie Science Lab, the building that we're in right now. As he pans really slowly around, you can see a couple more buildings. Then there's a hill that we call Observation Hill. That's what it's called, that you can climb up if you want to go for a hike. And then right in front of us is the vehicle that we drive around on the ice. It's called a piston bully. And a piston bully is a sort of modified snow grooming machine for ski slopes. But here they're specially made for this program so that we can drive them around and use them for diving. As we keep going, we can see, let's see, can you see the helicopters? There are 4 helicopters here that help people work out in deep field camps that we get to fly around in sometimes. And then keep going a little bit, that really big flat white area you can see out there is the sea ice. So that's the ocean. Sometimes of the year on warm years that breaks out and it's open water and there's whales and penguins and things. Most of the time though, it is 7 or 8 or 9 feet of ice out there. And that is what we dive through. That little orange building that's down by the ice is a fish hut, and that's one of the structures that we're able to dive out of. All right, so I'm getting a little bit cold.
I'm
getting
Anything else?
cold as well. So.
All right, anything else we should show them out here?
Show us shivering.
Shivering. All right, we're heading back inside through the meat locker, out of the meat locker. All right, so we're walking back to the aquarium room.
Wire around your foot.
Walking back to the aquarium room. These 2 folks back here are the information technology people that are helping make this possible.
It is not easy to get this good internet down here.
No.
I just want to say a big thank you to Carrie.
Yay,
and James.
Carrie and James,
They're
thank you
amazing.
guys.
All right, camera's going back on the computer. And I think.
All right, well, thank you guys all very much for listening. And we are, thank you, IT. We are able to take questions now. So
Wonderful. Hi, Amy. Thanks so much. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We have received so many questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we will try and send out more information to everybody when we send out the recording to get some of the answers to this. So one question we got is from Mr. Burrell's 6th grade science class. They're in Vermont, so they're probably used to those 20-something degree temperatures. How are there any photosynthesizing organisms beneath the ice?
that is a great question. So the photosynthesizing organisms that live underneath the ice have to really like low light. So they have to be incredibly efficient at turning light into energy. And under the thick ice, really, it's pretty much just single-celled organisms like diatoms. And when we're diving, they grow on the bottom of the ice. So when the sun starts to come up in the summer, they start to grow. And then by this time of year, the bottom of the ice is covered with a really thin layer of sort of greenish brown. That's all the diatoms. And then a little further north of here, there's a big plankton bloom that happens around this time every year. And that water with all that algae in it will eventually come in under the ice and there will be a lot of stuff here for animals to eat, and that happens every year. So there's some photosynthesis. If you go further north where the sea ice isn't around as much, you get algae growing on the bottom, so macroalgae. So yes, definitely there are.
Awesome.
Good question.
Thank. So what, let me find my other question here. So just we got is how, well, you mentioned you're being there for 4 months, but what type of schooling do you need to get a job like this to go to Antarctica? We have a lot of students here who you might have just piqued their interest in becoming a scientist, just like you guys.
So I can share my journey coming down here. I'm from Singapore and I study in Hawaii. Antarctica is not really the place that you might think we would end up. But you know, first thing, you want to have a great interest in the science that they're doing. You must have an Antarctic focus in your science. How I kind of got down here is I got trained in my undergrad years as a science diver. And then Amy knew I was a science diver because I was working in a lab for a little bit. And then when she got a grant funder, she emailed me and was very excited, hey, because you want to come dive in the Antarctic. So it's just a great opportunity that kind of opened up for us. But if you have the interest and you try and kind of work towards it, I'm sure you'll make it down. If you don't come down as a scientist, there's, again, you know, we mentioned in the slides, there's a whole group of, there's a whole bunch of people. 90% of the station is here to support the science, and like 10% or less maybe are the scientists themselves. So there's a variety of ways that you can get down here, even if you're not a scientist.
Awesome. So Miss Gelber's 4th grade class, and I don't know where they're from, I apologize. They want to know, when you're diving, how do you find the hole again?
That's a great question. So that's obviously really important, right? Because there's only one way out, and we have to breathe air eventually. So what happens here is there's a big hole drilled in the ice. The water is really, really clear, and the hole is really bright, so you can see it from a long way away. And so you never want to lose sight on it. But also we drop a long rope down the hole with a weight on the bottom and put flashing blinkers on it. And that means you can see it from a long way away. We always are very, very careful never to go anywhere where we can't see the line, because you really, really need to be able to make it back. But the visibility is so good, you can see so far here that it actually seems safe to us. Yeah, that's a really good question. Really important question.
That's a really important question, because I think the hole is the lack of areas to come up is the most dangerous thing about diving here, easily.
Awesome.
Yeah. But we have not problem.
We have no problem because we are well trained. There you go.
Training is important. So we got a lot of questions, Graham, when you were showing the sea spiders. So one is, how big do they get, but also if they're venomous at all?
So that's probably one of the bigger ones. We did have one that was a little bit bigger, but we put him back. But that big one that I was holding is about as big as they get, at least down here that we find. Venomous wise, no, they're not. They don't bite us. You know, none of us have ever been bitten. There's, you know, thousands of people that come through this aquarium every year and touch them from the touch tank. So they don't bite us. They mainly feed on soft bodied things.
So they do have little jaws, and that they use those to puncture the sides of like sea anemones or whatever they're trying to eat. Yeah, those are really good. I'm sure there's a lot of really good questions in the chat about sea spiders, and sea spiders are one of the most mysterious groups of animals left that we sort of know the least about. So we'd love to hear more questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. So where's my question here? Okay, so how do these animals not freeze? You said the water temperature is very cold. So how does that work?
How do they not breathe, or how do they breathe?
Freeze.
Oh, not freeze. Oh, sorry. That's a good question. So, you know, the water here isn't frozen. So a lot of animals try to avoid the formation of ice crystals in their bodies So they may actually drop a little bit below the freezing temperature of water, and the water may start freezing around them, but their blood doesn't freeze because they have some kind of antifreeze in their blood, like you might put in your car in a really cold place. Some of the animals also stay deep. So the deeper you dive here, the more kinds of animals you see. And we can only dive so deep, so we miss probably a lot of it. But when you're down deep, the freezing temperature of seawater actually goes down because of the pressure. And so animals that are deeper than we can go, they can get colder than freezing and not freeze. So there's been a lot of work done on fish and how fish here in the Antarctic don't freeze. A lot less done with the invertebrates. So there may be a lot we don't know.
Awesome. So I think we've got about 2 more questions just for the classrooms. I'm sure they're getting ready to go. One, we have actually an AP bio class in Nevada, Mr. Fritzen, and they actually asked a really interesting question. So in terms of the large size of those sea spiders, is that genetic or environmental? So is that in their genes, or is it really a factor of being in this cold Antarctic water?
Another really, really good question. Animals, by and large, animals, if you not warm-blooded animals, but cold-blooded animals, if you raise them up at a cold temperature, they'll be bigger than you raise them up at a small temperature, which it sounds like people already know about that, so that's great. So that might be a little part of it, but probably is almost entirely genetic now. So the animals that are here are probably programmed to grow to those really large sizes. That's a good question.
Awesome. And we also want to know just what led you to become a marine biologist, to study invertebrates. How did you get there?
I can speak. So from my own experience, I have always liked animals. I've always been really, and my mom may be on this call, and she could probably tell some stories about finding strange animals in my room or wandering around the house. But when I was in college, I took a class in invertebrate biology, and it just amazed me. I remember sitting there thinking, I didn't realize that there were so many different ways to make an animal. So there's something like 32 different phyla of animals, and a phylum is like a way of making an animal, and all animals have to basically do the same thing: get food, get oxygen, move, reproduce. But there's so many different ways of doing it, and that just, I don't know, my mind started growing a lot when I realized that, and I've been really fascinated by that ever since. So maybe these guys can.
And similar. I grew up in Michigan, so hello everyone back in Michigan. But and I've always had a love for organisms, and I was a teaching major originally, so I love doing stuff like this and outreach. And I really got into biological field when I started working in a lab back at Central. So hi Andy, I know you're there too. But again, like with Amy, it's kind of something that just really piqued my interest. There's so much going on. There's so much going on down here. A lot of these organisms, there's so many questions that we still have that we're trying to answer about them. So it's just really, it's a really fun thing, and keeps your mind working, just trying to figure out what's going on down here, what's going on with organisms all around the world.
So super quick for me. As I was growing up, always interested in aquariums and bugs, and here is an aquarium full of bugs. So it's great. But when I first went to Hawaii, I was actually interested in fish. I know my shirt. But then, and not because Amy is here, but then I took Amy's class, and she really got me interested in the invertebrate biology. And then it just kind of went uphill, I guess, uphill or downhill from there. But the conclusion I'm trying to make is that the teacher really does play a big part in shaping the interests of the students. So all your students, be thankful for your teachers. Yes.
Wonderful. I do want to thank you all again for spending time answering some questions. As I said before we started this Q&A, we're going to collect all the questions we got and send out some more answers and some resources, just because there's so many amazing questions and not nearly enough time. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who's just going to close us out.
For everyone who's leaving, thank you guys very much for coming and for giving us the opportunity to share our work with you. It has been a lot of fun.
Thank you guys, Amy, Grandma, and Aaron. You guys are so fabulous. And there were so many questions. You guys have just done such a wonderful job. I can tell by all the questions we got that you all cannot get enough of Antarctica. So my colleague Elaine is going to drop some links into the chat feature so you can learn more about Amy's lab and her work and her team. You can go to their webpage. We also have a video made by a woman named Rachel Heckerman that did a little documentary about Amy and her team's work. You can also go to the U.S. Antarctic Program website. That's www.usep.gov. We have lots more resources, news stories. We have the Antarctic Sun, which is our own in-house online newspaper about all the science that we do down in Antarctica. We have a library of over 8,000 amazing photos of the continent, going all the way back to the 1950s when the Navy actually ran things down there for us. And we have lots of educational resources. We have Antarctic animal trading cards. We have lots of other things for your classrooms that you guys can do to learn more and just have more fun with Antarctica. You can also follow the National Science Foundation on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and for lots more Antarctic content, photos, videos, all things like that. And if you still want more, we are actually having another live Zoom event next week. So next week, we'll be chatting with researchers who are currently on board an Antarctic icebreaker. It is a ship called the Nathaniel B. Palmer, and it's currently off the coast of Antarctica near the West Antarctic Peninsula, which is close to South America and Chile and Argentina. And so researchers right now are studying the marine ecosystems along the west coast of Antarctica. And so we'll be chatting with them next Thursday, December 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you can register for it just like you did for this event. And you can go to the U.S. Antarctic Program website for more info and for registration. And so these researchers are going to be talking about the long-term ecological research that they do. And so it will be really exciting and we're really looking forward to it. We hope you all can join us. And that's it. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This was so fabulous. And if anyone else wants to say anything before we go, please do.
All right, thank you guys again. If you have questions, and I know I'm sorry we couldn't answer all your questions in the chat, but you can always get in touch because we love sharing this with you guys. So thank you very much.
Amy, Graham, Aaron, thank you guys all so much. We know you have a busy work day ahead of you, even though it's a Saturday. So it is greatly appreciated.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. See you.
Bye.